So, moving on from a small team to what has become quite a large transformation across one of the core engines of Australia's obsession with property and RP Data as the information provider for that obsession. But I'm really proud to welcome CoreLogic, who are not only a significant customer globally for us, but especially for us in Asia Pacific and Japan. CoreLogic, in fact, the CoreLogic office out of Australia looks after everything outside of the US, so it's really the international operations. Proud of our partnership and one of our first labs customers to start on the journey when we opened our labs here in Sydney. So please join me in welcoming Greg Dickason, the CTO from CoreLogic International.
Thanks, Gavin. A lot of what's been said, or a lot of what I was planning to say has been said. So I might run through that quite quickly, because you guys, I think, all get what cloud is, you get what DevOps is, you get a little model. And I think probably what more importantly is actually to ask some questions, especially for me, the interaction between technology and the business. Things like, how do I get funding for this? How does this fit into a CapEx, OpEx model? If I don't have waterfall, I don't have certainty. If I don't have certainty, it's very, very hard to talk, especially to the finance department. Now, the reality in our learning, and we've been with Pivotal for just over 2 years here, and internationally for a bit longer than that, because we've been working with them in LA. The reality is there is no such thing as certainty in IT. What you can do is you can come up with a beautiful waterfall model, and then you can have change. And change requests around that, and delays and everything else. For me, what's beautiful about the agile approach, especially when you combine it with DevOps and the cloud, is that you can actually be more certain about your uncertainty. I know that sounds ridiculous, but the way you do that is through things like burnout and burnout charts, getting a feel for how quickly people can get through stuff, and understanding what your backlog is. And that's a huge education for me as a technology guy to educate our finance guys. And that's a learning that we've gone through. So I'll take you through a few slides, but I think two things that luckily jumped out for me, which is really important, and something that has happened for us in a big way in the last couple of years while we worked with Pivotal. First thing is it's all about context. The biggest problem, I think, in modern organization is it is so complex that people tend to build their own models in their mind of how their business works. Right, so I sit there as a CTO and I believe that technology works in a certain way, and that's filtered through my team and filtered through the execs that I work with. And the net result of that is my model keeps getting reinforced, and sometimes I adjust it. And unless I force myself to get out of my context and go and talk to a customer, or get down and actually sit next to a developer, I lose the wider context of the business. And that's the same for every single other person in our business. And what the Pivotal approach does, and what the DevOps and cloud approach does, is it forces everybody to share a bigger context. They have to talk to the customer. They have to see how their code operates in production. They have to understand, as an operations person, how the code works and how it's built, as a tester through TDD. So what's incredible about it is it forces context across more and more people. But a lot of the conversation is all about technology sharing context, or technology and product sharing context. I think the challenge for us is how do you get that through the rest of the business. So that for me, from talking to Lockie's thing, and a lot of what I talk about is context. The other thing for me is no heroes. Who here has or has encountered a hero in IT? Lots of heroes, right? These are the guys who keep everything up. And for me, there's heroes everywhere. There's a dev hero who can solve any problem. There's the ops hero who will work until 4 in the morning and stay up to make sure that when you come in, you can see that he's been there the whole night and he's kept your systems on, right? You seen him? Yep. We don't want heroes, because heroes are great at fighting fires. We want people who stop fires from happening, which means you start to have a context sharing so everybody else can solve. Now, it's very, very hard, right? It's very, very hard to wean yourself off heroes, especially when you have legacy systems, because legacy systems tend to live around heroes, the 2 or 3 people that just know how that system works. So the process is not an easy one, and I can't say we've got to the end, but what we've tried to do is get a learning culture around no heroes and shared context. That's basically my slide pack, so maybe I shouldn't go through my slides. Before I do, any questions on that, or any comments? Okay, I'll get here in for a bit and show you some slides. So the transformation journey, so Gavin asked me, talked about the transformation journey to being a cloud-native enterprise. Who is CoreLogic? We are the property guys. So we've got 700 or so people outside of the US, a couple of thousand people in the US, $2 billion of revenue listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We track what property is worth, what it's sold for, what it's listed, everything about property. Who here knows what their property was worth this morning? Good, some CoreLogic people do. Who here knows that Sydney has actually gone down in value in the last 3 months? Few people. Good, that's impressive. Very few people know that, right? All of that comes from us. In fact, we produce a daily index which takes every single piece of data that we can find, listings, sales, etc., and feeds it into an index that we publish every day. It's on the website. And it tells you what's happened overnight to the stock market, to the property market, which, by the way, is worth $7.3 trillion. So a lot of money is tied up in the property market. So we get a lot of interest from externally about our property, about our data, and about the property market, because every Australian is invested in some way in property. And a lot of what we're doing in being able to deliver to Australians the key data around the asset is using cloud technology. It's things like getting scalability in our AI, on our analytics. It's things like using PCF and AWS, so we can scale up and scale down as demand shifts. It's things like being able to rapidly test and iterate models, so we can actually get the best valuation for your property at any one point in time, and also evaluate things like new pieces of data. How quickly can we take a new piece of data set in, like school zones, for example? If I know your property is in a particular school zone, does that influence your property price? And most recently, we've actually started to do image analytics. So throwing images of your property against the valuation and seeing, does the image give us a better predictor of whether your house is worth more or less? And interestingly, it does. The quality image showing a quality property is actually able to be detected through artificial intelligence, and it does influence. We can actually tell that higher quality properties from the images are worth more. Okay, so I've talked about change. In CoreLogic, what we've done is we've said 5 years ago, we need to go on a journey because we are going to go from being a single property data company to being a platform. Ultimately, we cannot produce every single piece of product that our customers need. But what we can do is give our data to our customers in new and novel ways, and more importantly to our partners in new and novel ways, so they can turn our data into effective products. So 5 years ago, I couldn't believe that Amazon was going to produce the Alexa or Google Be Home. There's something you could talk to. But I could start to think about creating a platform, which means when they do come, very easy to iterate on top of those. So we produced very much an API-first approach to producing a platform, which means that we are future-proofed. Whenever something else comes along, it can iterate at the top of us. And that's why we managed to do 5 products with Pivotal in the last 2 years, because we have to use that API, build out from that API, and create a whole bunch of new products that we can take to market. One of those being a very, very effective insurance calculator, which can work out the current replacement value of your property very, very quickly, but through an API, so it can be delivered straight into a mobile app, for instance, if some of the big insurers would produce. DevOps is one of the words that we use because we've very much moved to DevOps culture, and I'll take you through a little bit of that by the end. But for me, it's just a mechanism to incubate change. And how quickly can we change? And using DevOps, we've gone from 2 or 3 releases a month to 2 or 3 releases a day. And that sounds great. The question is, how big is the release? The 2 or 3 a month, big. The 2 or 3 a day, tiny. And that means you can accommodate change very quickly, you can roll back, you can do big green deployments, and you can much more effectively understand what your change does to your current environment. That also helps to share context. Because if I'm a developer and the release is happening today, I can look at it and I can care about it. If I'm a developer that built code a month ago, and I've now moved on for 2 months, or sorry, a month, and then it gets released, my head's no longer in the game. I'm on to the next thing. The beauty of this is it helps my context to be shared, also helps to be shared much more real time. The change I made this morning, I can see it in the afternoon. Now when I say releases, those are not always to production. Often they're to UAT. But the beauty of cloud is that production and UAT can look exactly the same. I can test them and everything else. The old day of Big Tin, they didn't. And that's very powerful. So how do we do it as a company? It's culture. How do I share context? I share through culture. Most important thing, do I have an executive buy-in? Are the execs themselves engaged? We're very lucky, we had a very forward-thinking, do have a very forward-thinking CEO, and our last one was also very forward-thinking. So we have a Monday stand-up. All the execs and most of the senior management team stand up around the board, and we go through what's to be done through the quarter and through the week. And we actually track each other's progress and hold ourselves accountable. It also helps again to share context. I know what HR's top priorities are. So does some of my dev leaders, because they also stand there. So do the leaders of product. Also, very, very importantly, we forced people to start to think about being partnered and product available, and also working as a platform. The important thing there is to start to say, we're working with partners. How do we expand our business? 700 of us, we're not big enough to be able to move and move everything. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the slides, because I'm just going through things. But I think the key learnings really, for me, again, I've said, is context, context, context. And there's a beautiful book called The Strategic Corporate. My wife didn't like the slide, although she didn't like a gun being in the thing. The point of the Strategic Corporate is that increasingly in modern warfare, we are requiring on our frontline soldiers a 3-block strategy. In the first block, they've got to fight the ground war. They've got to understand how to win that war. In the second block, they've got to do peacekeeping. They've got to work out who the enemy is and who the enemy isn't, and work with them. And in the third block, they've got to do humanitarian. They've got to go out there, and they've got to be able to deliver aid and work very closely with people. For me, the strategic corporate is everybody in our business. They've got to understand what we do, and they've got to understand what our strategy is, and they've got to be able to execute that on the ground without management near them. 5 minutes. Okay. So for me, the strategic corporate is our business, and how do we share context so that that person can make the right decision at the right time? So when they're pair programming, or when they're out talking to the customer, or when they're keeping our systems alive, they've got to know what's most important for our business. And that's really what almost everything we do in our business and like cloud operations is. Again, shared context. And I'll just leave you with one slide before I take some questions. That's the number of deployments we've done per month. This is when we started with Pivotal, when we started to do PCF deployments, and that's how quickly we started to do our releases, how quickly our releases changed. Any questions? Yes. I'll ask myself one, and then maybe we can. The question I would ask myself is, how do you get finance to sign off on a big project? We've done 5 big projects with Pivotal. How do we get finance to sign off on that? Well, what we do is we do discovery and framing first. So that's a bit like requirements gathering. You can put it back into, if you like, the waterfall terminology. But we do that with finance. So people come in and they actually see what a discovery and framing is, which means we're talking to customers, we're creating a little prototype, we're actually getting an idea of what we're going to build. We also get an idea of the team, we get an idea of how long we think it's going to take to get to an MVP. Then we promise we're going to give finance, after discovery and framing is approved and done, we promise we're going to give finance a fixed time with variable scope. We're going to get you something in the market that will have a market impact, and this is the kind of revenue we expect, but we'll vary the scope. What's beautiful about the pivotal model is that's what you can do. And at any point in time, you can also turn it off. If you think you're not going in the right direction, you can essentially slow it down or stop the project. Finance loves it. They love certainty, which you give them, variable scope at a certain time, and they also love the fact that they can turn off the tap if they need to. It's a great question, Greg.
You're covering a lot of concepts here, right?
Huge number of concepts.
Huge number
I was given 20 minutes to do a lot of concepts. Yeah.
So, I mean, my question is, what do you think, when you're trying to sell this concept of building the right thing and going faster and changing the way that your business works, what do you think is the key thing that the senior execs who maybe don't have a lot of comfort in that technology area, what do you think is the key thing that you can say to them that will sort of get them on the journey?
The key thing you can say to them first, everybody talks about disruption. So you've got to say, how do we incubate ourselves against disruption? And the key thing about this is it enables you to constructively evolve. And the other key thing is that you can learn through doing. So you don't have to do everything through this. You can start with 10%. And that's what the Corey guys have done. Right? So the key thing for me is this is a low-risk approach to addressing the way the market's going. We all know it's going to happen. You need a digital and a transformation story. This is it. Second thing is you don't have to commit the entire world to this. You can start small and you can learn through the process. And the third thing is, how do you actually make sure you're safe against digital disruption and disruption in total? This is how you do it. You build, measure, learn, and you do it in this kind of environment.
Can I ask one question, Greg? Because we do have quite a few from the banking sector here.
Yep.
Part of the value that you've derived that we've loved seeing is where you've not only built software with us, but brought in some of the banking sector to create compelling software outcomes and experiences for customers in the labs. Can you give us an example of one of those?
It's back to the question there was, how do we get the banking sector and then involved as well? And it's back to the partnership approach, right? We've got great data, we've got good ways of getting it out there, but they know their customers. We're very much a B2B2C player, so a lot of the time, bring them in, do the discovery and framing with our partners and customers. And we've done that both in the banking and the insurance sector. And for example, we worked with Equifax, so I'm not using their name, we're just known as Vida. They came in and we worked together on getting an API built. And that actually was extremely quick. And the context, back to context sharing, was incredible because they put the API developers in that built their side. And so we could cut all of that to and fro. How does this work? What is that? What does that mean? In days, we were doing what would have taken weeks in the old way.
Fantastic. I'm sure there's going to be lots of other questions, but certainly we're very proud to have been associated with CoreLogic and to be bringing some of the other banking clients through to work in conjunction with them to really reshape what mortgage industry solutions and experiences can be like as we're all consumers of that service. So please join me in thanking Greg Dickason from CoreLogic.